All right, so I'm gonna share with you how I lost my wife, my daughter, and went from spending $700 to $4,000 in 23 hours of flying just to get to the Boston Marathon. All right, so to give context to this video right now, I wanna explain that I have a wife, obviously she was coming, and a 2-year-old daughter. Okay, so at 4 o'clock in the morning, we got a message, and my phone's on airplane mode. I turn it back on, and it says that my flights have been canceled. We have a flight at 6 a.m., getting ready to leave the house as we packed the night before and gonna head out. The problem is, since they rebooked it, I was like, okay, well, we still gotta make it to the airport because I gotta get to Boston. So I'm trying to get to Boston for the marathon. I have to be there by a certain time period to check in, and then also because of what's going on with the pandemic, have to get a test. So timing is very, very important. I get the notification. I said, no matter what, we got to get to Boston. I don't know what's going on. So we go ahead and leave towards the airport. On our way down there, I got a notification from my phone that says, hey, you've been rebooked. Awesome. We get to the counter. It's extremely busy. There's a ton of flights that are canceled, including ours, but we had been rebooked. I get up there to get our tickets. One major problem. My daughter was not part of our manifest. So my wife and I were headed to Providence, and my daughter was on a different flight by herself. I don't know why that was working or how that was gonna work. As a 2-year-old, she can't really fly by herself. So anyway, I go up to the counter, the guy's working with me. He's saying like, hey, what time do you have to be there? I said, I gotta be there today. I need to be there Saturday. I wanna be there Saturday. Technically I had to have Sunday, but I was like, I need to be there Saturday to check in, drive from Providence, etc. And he said, there's no options here for that. But he did have, or not an option at that time. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what we do. So we grab our stuff and I just go wait in line. My wife had parked the car, so she went to go get the car and figure out what to do there. I get in line again with my daughter to talk to somebody else and try to figure out something. We're like, okay, is there any way that we can get there? This guy was super helpful. However, he was getting a little frustrated or stressed because the lines were backing up, and so I didn't want to take up more time. Went into the full service line. When we got there, a lady tried to help me. She's like, hey, no problem. I see 3 people as an option for this flight at 11 a.m. I'm like, cool. Only a couple hours later, we'll get in at around 5 p.m. Not a big deal. We were supposed to get in around 3, so 2-hour difference, not a big deal. Problem, because the guy previously had moved around our tickets and we never actually got them combined, it was a big mess. And honestly, I don't know what happened, but because of that big mess, and they took 45-50 minutes to move everything around, they were down to 1 ticket. So I got 1 ticket and left at 11-ish. My wife had another ticket and my daughter were gonna fly out a couple hours later. I was just gonna fly to Providence and pick them up from Providence at like 11 o'clock that night. Not ideal, but we were all gonna fly out. My flight got delayed about an hour. My wife's flight was supposed to fly to Chicago and then to Providence, and I was gonna pick her up. Okay, so their flight was delayed about an hour, hour and a half or so, and they were supposed to go to Chicago. They went to Salt Lake City. In the middle of their flight, I was also in the air to Baltimore. I was supposed to go to Tennessee, but ended up in Baltimore and landed at the regional airport there. When I landed, I was told my flight was canceled from Baltimore to Providence. So I waited in line for 2 hours at the desk. There was only one person who was able to help us. Luckily, I ran into several other people who were going to Providence too, and we all kind of were talking, trying to figure out options here. Meanwhile, my wife and daughter were over in Salt Lake City, had just landed there, and they got a notification that that their flight was canceled. So they were supposed to go to Salt Lake and then to Chicago and then to Providence. So it was already gonna be crazy to just get them there. But they got to Salt Lake and there was no other options. They literally got to Salt Lake, and that's kind of where their story stops for a second. For me, there's 3 people ahead of me and there's several tickets online. And we see the tickets online because I'm going through the app and just saying, okay, cool, this is available, this is available. 2 people in front of me get their tickets. They even get a taxi paid for by the airline, and they're gonna pay for them to go to, I think it's called Dulles. Shout out to those who know how to say it correctly. Anyway, Dulles, as a fun fact, is also where the one of the planes that left to go towards the 9/11 attack. So I guess a very famous airport, and it's huge. But the problem is we got up to the counter and the lady was just notified, who gave them the taxi information, that that flight was canceled as well. I was in line and said I'm not gonna wait to that point. I was hoping to get a voucher. So I went ahead and bought that ticket along with several other people. My card didn't go through, so I bought it 3 times, $176. I know it very well, 3 different times. And they told me it was canceled. I found another one on American Airlines and said, okay, I can't even wait at this counter. So I sprinted down. My bags were inside of the baggage claim room because we had been there for a couple hours and it wasn't gonna spin around on the carousel. There's a line inside of the baggage claim area. And I basically have 15 minutes to make it to the counter, check in, or drop my stuff off to make it to the airline. And what I did is I just told these people, like, here's my driver's license, these are my bags, showed it to them and sprinted out. She told me I had to wait in line. I told her I can't, I gotta make this flight. So American was gonna fly out at around 6-ish p.m. and make it to Providence by 7:30. Awesome, I'm still gonna make pretty good timing, still be able to make it. The problem is, got to American and I have my daughter's car seat and I have my bag and then I have my backpack. I could have dropped the car seat and figured out something else just to get it on there. And they said, nope, you can't leave your bag here. So sorry, we can't do that. I had TSA pre-check and was gonna be able to make the flight. They were even gonna hold the flight for me, but they couldn't get my bag there. Even if I said, well, I'll pick it up later. They said, nope, can't do it. So I walked down 3 more aisles and found a United flight, paid $500 to go from Baltimore. And at this point, I'm still at the regional airport in Baltimore to go to Dulles. And I bought the airline there and I asked her, like, hey, look, is this flight gonna get canceled? Because I'm about to pay $500 for this for one way and I really don't want this to get canceled, especially since it's an hour-and-a-half flight. She's like, no, we don't have any issues. It is delayed. I'm like, okay, awesome. So it's delayed. And I went ahead and booked that ticket, and then 2 other people that we were with as well did. They bought the tickets too. So we were gonna Uber together. Turns out this is 30 miles away in Washington, D.C. So amazing traffic. Shout out to D.C. though. I've never been there, and I got to see the Lincoln Memorial and like a lot of the stuff as you're flying or driving by. But it cost us $60 or so to, actually, no, I think it was more than that. It was like $75 to Uber to this airport. And we got there, and like I said, it was a little bit of a delay, but we got there around 7:30 or so, and then our flight was at 11:30. So I just sat at the airport, and as I was going to the airport, I haven't had anything to eat. I had some beef jerky at like 10:30 that morning, and obviously some water, but hadn't had any food. And this place is getting ready to close in like 15 minutes as I'm like finally getting through the airport, checking in, and I'm like, hey, can I please just buy something? Like the grill closes in like 10 minutes. I'm like, please. Luckily, they let me sit down, got a hamburger, which was amazing, and then just fell asleep on the airport floor for a couple of hours until our flight was going. The best part, our flight was actually moved up by 15 minutes, so we did get that. The problem was, now I'm gonna be arriving in Providence at like 1:30 in the morning, and my rental car, they actually stay open super late, but they close at midnight. So I called Enterprise and said, hey, is there any way that somebody could wait? I'm gonna be in a little bit later. They're like, we can't guarantee anything, we'll see. So we get on this plane, which I have to walk outside, and I was like, sweet, row 10, like things are looking up. Well, row 10 in this airplane is the very back. It's a very small airplane, and it's very scrunched together. We land, thank goodness, and luckily this mom and son were gonna wait for me, and they said like, hey, look, we live somewhere near this area. We'll drive you all the way to Boston if you need it. Well, at that same time, I had the car seat bag, so I'm carrying up the car seat, my bag, and my carry-on, and going up what is like 3 or 4 of those like fast walking like spots in the airport where you can like move across that, and then up to like 3 different escalators. And then I finally make it out there, and there is a guy from Enterprise waiting there for me. He actually helped one other person and then me, but he was there at 1:45 in the morning. He was the biggest blessing in disguise. But as I'm finding this out, my wife and daughter, we'll go back to their story here in a second. But at 1:45, I get in the car, everything's going well, and I make it to Boston, get up into my my hotel room, and thank goodness there is a hotel app where I could check in by myself, and I get to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. So finally made it there almost 24 hours later. Meanwhile, my wife and daughter are stranded in Salt Lake City. No other airlines, nothing. It's like there's literally nothing out there out of Salt Lake. So they're stuck in the airport. They can't go anywhere because I have the car seat. They don't have any food. They don't have anything. And luckily they got a hotel for the night because so many people, other people had been stranded. So they took a trolley or something else, like a shuttle basically, over to the airport. And my wife and daughter spent Saturday, Sunday, and part of Monday inside of a hotel room eating off of the floor. And luckily there were some very nice people who helped get together some food. And they did get some vouchers from the airline to get some food at the hotel. And they did have a couple people help them out to bring some stuff for my daughter. But yeah, my daughter loved it, right? She's like, sweet, we get to stay in a hotel. And she's saying, no home, no home. And she doesn't want to go home. But they're stuck in an airport, an airport hotel. And luckily, after 5.5 hours of my wife on the phone, which she never talked to anybody, but she waited on the phone for 5.5 hours. I just told her to go ahead and buy tickets for her and my daughter back at 5:50 in the morning. So 5:50 in the morning on Monday, they get to fly home, another $500 of another ticket. And they get to fly home and make it home. My daughter at this point is just exhausted, as well as my wife. But they finally make it home Monday morning. So I run the marathon. The marathon goes great. My point up to Boston at this point is like, okay, cool, things are going well, other than the fact that I had an Uber driver cancel 3 of my my rides to go get my test taken and to go get my bib for the race. So other than that, everything went well. But then that same day that I went to go get the test on, Sunday? Yeah, Sunday I went to go do that. A friend of mine at Southwest actually told me like, hey, look, your flight was canceled here. You got to buy another set of tickets, or buy another ticket home. So I buy another ticket, $500, and leave from Providence to Chicago and then to Dallas. If I wouldn't have done that, or if my friend wouldn't have told me, I would have showed up at the airport and would have not had a flight. So everything up until that point went well. I got onto my flight in Providence, left a little bit early, which was amazing. Got to Chicago, waited around for a very long time there, and then finally landed at about 12:30 p.m. on 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday morning. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and finally made it back to Dallas. So several flights. I think the rough total of sales, or rough total of amount spent for flights, was close to $3,000. So hopefully I get a little bit more of that money back. The airlines have been super helpful here, but all of the ones that I bought on previous airlines that I actually got there, just lost money at that point. So hopefully I can recoup some of that money. More of the story is, or I guess the good part about the story is, that I ran a really good Boston, and the race was amazing, but that was a flight experience from HE hockey stick, or Hades, for those who don't know. But it was absolutely insane. And that's kind of the shortened version of like every detail that went out. But anyway, that's what happened on my trip to the Boston Marathon.